Okay, so this is going to be a raw kale salad. We should all be eating dark leafy greens all the time, and I try to get at least a couple of servings of dark leafy greens every day. And I find that kale takes dressing really well. Now, this is my own dressing that I made at Sarah's house. It has chickpeas, miso, nutritional yeast, a little bit of mustard, some lemon juice, and some salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and that's really it. There's no oil, there's no fat, so you don't have to feel guilty about eating it, because the other two dishes have a lot of fat. So, so what you do, yes, go ahead. Yeah, sure. It's 1 can of chickpeas, 1.5 tablespoons of miso, 1 tablespoon of mustard, cheap yellow mustard. Don't go buying the fancy stuff. It's not worth it. About a teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of onion powder, maybe like 1.5 teaspoons of salt, give or take. Like, you can salt it to your own taste. Black pepper to your taste, and lemon juice. Pardon? Yes. These are all brand new. I just wanted to show you guys my style of cooking so that you get an idea of what I'm doing. These will be in the next book that I'm writing. The first book that I wrote, I was living in Florida, and I was in a family of 6 people. And so all the quantities are enough to feed an army. Sarah knows because she's read it and she's seen it, and it's like the recipe for budgie that I have in the book calls for like 6 pounds of potatoes. So we're army food. Like, we're talking like, let's make enough so that we can feed the entire city of Madison, and then invite all their friends over from Minnesota and Illinois. Like, let's go nuts and feed everybody. The second book is more focused on smaller quantities, so it's meant for like 1 or 2 people at the most, because I found that ever since I've moved to New York and my apartment is the size of a postage stamp, and my kitchen is even smaller than the postage stamp, I don't have space to buy vegetables in bulk. I don't have space to buy much of anything in bulk. So like, I have to make very, very small quantities. So what I do is that there are 5 grocery stores within walking distance of my apartment. So I'll take a specific subway home and pick up a vegetable and then make it for dinner. And that's what the second book is based on. And that these recipes are going to be in the second one, which is only 30% written. If anybody is interested in helping to test the recipes, please give me your email address at some point so that I can email you like an advanced copy of the recipes that I have so far. Because the first book needed recipe testers desperately, and I got them because I was part of this vegan forum, but guess what? The vegan forum shut down. So now what? So what I'm doing right now is that I'm massaging the kale, and I'm beating it up, like I'm really giving it a workout, because what happens is that when you massage dark leafy greens, they taste like they're cooked, even though they're not. And I'm not a raw food person, I swear to you. Like, I like cooked food, I like unhealthy food, I like fat, I like salt, I like, all those horrible things. But this is actually really delicious, and this is one of the few ways that you'll get me to eat raw vegetables, because no. Question? Did someone have a question? No? Okay. So I'm beating up the kale, and I used 2 cans of chickpeas, so I doubled the recipe that I told you, for 5 bunches of kale. So like, a little goes a long way, We made a blender full, and this is what we're coming up with. And you'll notice how you remember how the kale was so huge when I started? Not anymore, because we've beaten it up right now. And that's what I mean when I say like it tastes like it's been cooked, is like when you massage it, it really gets this awesome flavor. And it breaks down and it tastes good. So why the heck not, right? All right, guys, you guys can serve the kale. Yes, go ahead, darling.
When you're massaging the kale, do you have to have a dressing on it to get it to break down like that?
Not necessarily. What you can also do if you don't feel like doing a dressing is sprinkle on some salt and some lemon juice and go nuts, and it'll do the same thing. I just like putting the dressing on there because it tastes really good. Yes, I did. But like I said, that was 5 bunches of kale. So this is a 16-ounce mason jar for 5 bunches of kale. Not too bad. And there's no fat in the dressing, so hooray. Do we have any other questions?
How do you feel about coconut oil?
I love it. Oh, I love it so much. I'm from the south of India. We use coconut oil to make everything taste amazing, and it does, and it really does. It's one of the few times that I will encourage you to go buy the organic, free-range, thus and so ingredient, because it actually does make a difference. The taste is far superior when you get the good quality one. You can buy it on Amazon for a 16-ounce jar for about $8. You don't need much. Yes, go ahead. Yes, coconut oil is one of those magical oils that does get hot enough to pop spices, but it also can be used as a finishing oil, so you get that wonderful flavor at the end of the cooking. So you just add a few tablespoons at the end. A few tablespoons? No, a lot of tablespoons at the end. So one time I was at home and my mom was in, I think, Virginia visiting my brother, and it was just me and my dad, and I had made this dish, and I had popped all the spices, and I added all the vegetables, and I added raw grated coconut, and I cooked it all together, and then I opened a tin of coconut milk and dumped it in there, not realizing that the fat had separated from the... So there was like an inch thick layer of coconut oil on top of that dish, and I told my mom, I cried. I was crying on the phone, and I was like, Mom, what did I do? This is horrible. It's a disaster. She said, that's not a disaster. That's a recipe. Because apparently her father's from Sri Lanka, and she said, that's how we do it. We put that huge layer of coconut oil on top because it tastes good. So honey, don't be embarrassed about it. Don't apologize for it. And I saw my father eat it up. Go ahead. That's the other thing, is that don't apologize for your food. If it doesn't quite turn out how you expected it to, try to fix it. There was this one time that I made rice and it came out really mushy. When I say really mushy, I mean it was pudding at that point. So I decided, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add some coconut milk and some sugar, and we're gonna call it rice pudding. Exactly. Pretend that that's how it's supposed to be in the first place. So when my mom told me that's not a disaster, that's a recipe, I really understood at that point, you don't need to apologize for your food. As long as it tastes good, who cares? It doesn't matter if it turns out exactly how you expected. It just tastes good, so who's bothered, So that's where I kind of got my cooking aesthetic from, is from my mother. And whenever she was in the kitchen, well, I'm a mama's boy. I'm gonna be perfectly honest and upfront right here. Wherever my mother was, she was always in my sights. So when she'd be at a party or we'd be at home, I would always be behind her, if not right next to her, behind her. And when you have a family of 6 people, where do you live? The kitchen. And that's where I was. And that's where I developed my passion for cooking, was because I would be in the kitchen and we'd be chatting and talking, and she would be like, oh, while you're at the sink, do you mind washing these vegetables? And then it turned into, while you're there at the counter, do you mind, finishing this off? Do you mind chopping these vegetables? And then it turned into, by the way, I have to go shower, make this dish for me, please. So this entire time that I'm in the kitchen with her, I'm asking her questions and I'm, bugging her and, whatever. And she's a very secretive cook. She doesn't like to share her secrets. However, I learned that if you slip it into the conversation, she kind of, doesn't know what's going on. So she gave up all her secrets to me, which I then developed on, and then now I give all my secrets to her. So we talk all the time, and this is us. This is my family. Do we have any other questions before I let you guys go? Yes. Yeah, sure. It was chickpeas. So 1 can of chickpeas, drained this time. A tablespoon and a half of miso, a couple of tablespoons of nutritional yeast, some mustard, lemon juice, and garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper. That's it. No oil. Absolutely no oil. In the blender, yeah. And lemon juice is the liquid in there so that I could, but if it doesn't have enough liquid, like if you don't have one of those fancy pants Vitamixes that you can use the plunger on, just add more water, it's fine. White miso. But you can use red miso, you can use whatever miso you have. Actually, chickpea miso, if you're allergic to soy, chickpea miso is great. It actually tastes exactly like the soybean miso. So, depending on, again, with the allergies, like I'm used to this. So when people are like, I want a dasamso without soy, well, we use the chickpea miso to give it that same flavor, and it works out just fine. So again, whole paycheck will help you out. I made this dressing for one of my dearest friends, Tasha, who gained about 100 pounds in a year. And she's like, I need to lose some weight, like now. And she likes to eat salad, but all the dressings are so full of fat. Or if you buy those like fat-free dressings from the store, they're full of all these chemicals and additives and whatnot. So I made this dressing so that she can have something on her salad without any fat in it. And she came over, and I offered to give her the rest of it, and she was like, no, it's fine, hold on to it. She didn't get a chance to come over for another month. It was still perfectly fine. It keeps, just add salt, don't be afraid of salt. Like add the salt, because it'll help preserve it longer. Just as long as you keep it in the fridge, you'll be fine. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for attending my talk. I really appreciate you guys coming out. And if you bought a copy of my book, or if you have a copy of my book, I'll be happy to autograph it for you. So yeah, thank you again.